When I made a video about one of my frittatas the other day, I mentioned that as a young lad I was in the Navy. I spent a compulsory year there, and one of the things I used to do was to make frittatas before I went to the base, and then I used that for the next 2 or 3 days. As most young lads, I used to love pizzas, but I was 20 and I didn't have much money. So with my colleagues at the base, we used to make tortilla pizzas. I was a radio operator, and I was land-based, and we actually were quite lucky because we had a little kitchen, and we could use that kitchen to do some basic cooking. We could not necessarily make a whole pizza, so we had to get creative, and this was one of the things we used to do quite often. But I've since realized that actually it is quite a common dish, especially amongst the younger generation, because it tastes a little bit like pizza. It's very easy to make, but also it's very, very quick. And just like you would do with a pizza, you can be as creative as you like, of course. And today I will be making 2 different versions, one richer than the other. The first one will have sausages and ham, eggplants and mushrooms. The base in both versions will be also tomatoes and mozzarella, whereas in the second version will just be cheese and ham. It starts to illustrate the simplicity of this dish and flexibility. If you're vegetarian, of course, all you need to do is to choose your ingredients, drop any meat-based products, and away you go. So you've seen me shallow frying a sausage using a little olive oil, and then using the fat released by the sausage, I'm now cooking some mushrooms. I'm slicing 1 eggplant, and I'm doing it in about 1 centimeter thick. Mushrooms have cooked. I'll add them to the sausages over here to cool down slightly, and I'm going to add now a little bit more olive oil, just a drizzle, not a lot. And using a slice of my eggplant where there is still the peel so it doesn't absorb the oil, I'll just spread it across the surface, and I'm now adding the rest of the slices. My temperature is on high at the moment, so I'll turn it down onto medium, and I'll place the lid on as they will cook considerably quicker. So about 5 minutes, and I can turn them around and I'll show you what they look like. In the meantime, I'll get my other ingredients ready, and I'll start with 4 eggs. I'm making 2 tortilla pizzas, so 2 eggs per pizza. Oh, I got double yolk. That's nice. Use a fork and I'll quickly beat them up. This is the oldest way to beaten up eggs, by the way. I remember my dad doing it in the kitchen for my mum when she used to make frittatas, and in case you have never done it before, it's very simple. Just circular motion and go up and down, and the job is done, about 20 seconds. And I'm adding some salt to my eggs now, and I will not be adding any salt to anything else, but if you want, you can add salt to other ingredients as you make your tortilla pizza. I would advise that if you salt the egg mix well, you don't need to worry. And pepper, of course. And that is my egg done, and I can move on to the other ingredients. I've got here a couple of beautiful large tomatoes on the vine, so let's remove the vine. I don't want that in my tortilla pizza, and I'll slice them simply. I'm making them approximately 1/2 centimeter per slice, just like this. And as you might have guessed already, I will be using 1 large tomato per tortilla pizza. Here is my mozzarella, again 1 ball per tortilla pizza, so I'm going to do exactly the same as to what I did with my tomatoes. Chop it in 1/2 centimeter slices. You do not have to use mozzarella, by the way. Obviously, if you want to be closely aligned to a pizza, use mozzarella, but you can also use cheddar, for example, or Edam, but do ensure that whatever cheese you do use, that it melts nicely, of course, because that's what you want in a pizza. And just for completeness, I'll show you my ham. I'm using cooked ham trimmings. This is something we buy from our local supermarket. It's very cheap because they are trimmings, but very, very tasty. And especially if you're making anything like this where you don't get to see much of it, really, it's ideal. But the benefit is that you get some chunky pieces like this, but also some very, very chunky pieces like this, which you can cut further with your knife if you want. And I have to say, it's some of the most delicious ham. Really nice. But of course you can use anything you like. However, I would recommend pork-based products. They go really well with these dishes. An option could be Parma ham, but that can be quite expensive, or Serrano, or Chorizo, Or indeed, if you like, you could use pancetta or bacon. So many options. Time to turn the eggplants around. I did say I was going to show you. So here it is, look. Can you see how beautiful they look? And because I'm keeping the lid on, obviously the steam is accelerating the cooking process. And of course this is also a considerably healthier way of cooking them rather than adding tons of oil. So the lid goes on 3-4 minutes and they'll be ready. And there we go, my eggplants are ready, and you will know that they're ready because they can be pierced very easily, and also they will look translucent just like these. So perfect. Same pan, no need to mess another one up, and I still got some residual heat. When I do this, by the way, I do not have the heat on, so that I am in charge of time and I do not need to be rushed. So a little bit more olive oil, just enough to gently cover the base. And this time I'll spread it using a spoon so that it covers the surface once again. And I'll start with my egg mixture first. So here it is. And I'm going to be using just a little, enough to make sure that I get a little base like this. And I'll spread it around. And I'm using some plain tortilla rice today. These are quite big, look, my hand, and they will fit in my pan quite nicely. But also you can buy smaller ones if you like, entirely up to you, depending on how big you want to make them. So the trick here is to ensure that you detach them from one another without obviously spoiling them. Sometimes they are not the best, but you can see what I mean, but that's okay. So that can go over here, and that'll be my first base. Followed by some tomato, and making sure that also I stay away from the edges. So like this is perfect. I'll put one in the middle. Very important ingredient if you're making pizza is oregano, so I'll sprinkle a little on top of my tomatoes. And just like you would do if you were making a pizza, I'm now adding my cheese. In this case it's obviously mozzarella. I'll make a start by cooking the simpler version out of the two. So this is just the ham first, followed by another tortilla wrap on top. And I'm now repeating exactly the same process. So here is my tomato, one in the middle, oregano, mozzarella, and here comes the ham. Followed by my wrap to finish the job. Press it down with my hands. And I'll get another scoop of my egg mix, and I'll pour it all over the sides, just like this. And time to turn the hob on again. So I'll put it on medium, and I'll place the lid on. Important that you place the lid on so that the egg cooks and amalgamates everything together. So this will take about 6 minutes to cook underneath, and then I'll show you what it looks like once we turn it around. Time to turn it around, and you will know that it's a good time by tasting it like this. Just get hold of the handle and give it a gentle shake. Can you see that it's moving? So that means that it can be turned around. Now, just like you would do with a frittata, unless you happen to use the small tortilla, I would suggest that the simplest way to do it is to put a little olive oil on the base of a plate, a flat plate like this. Spread it across using your hand so that it becomes slippery all over, and put it on top of your tortilla pizza, and just turn it around like this. And you will see that it looks a little bit like a frittata, unsurprisingly. And then as you've got some olive oil in there, it should just slice nicely on top of your pan, just like this. And I'll place the lid back on, and 3 to 4 minutes and it will be ready. 4 minutes and it should be ready. So let's take a look. Remove the lid once again and just give it a little shake. You can see that it's moving freely. This is not a frittata, looks like one. Obviously it's a tortilla pizza, so it's not going to come out as easily as a frittata. So same dish goes on top, still oily anyway, so just do the same, turn it around, and if you want the other side on top as it's a little bit more gold, just put the final dish on top and turn it around once again, and there it is, perfectly in my plate. So let's make the second one, the more decadent one. Earlier I noticed that when I put the first spoon of egg on my pan, it partly cooked it, and I don't want that. So I'm now working off the hob because it's still very hot. So I'll start again, a little olive oil at the bottom of my pan. The pan has cooled down slightly once again, but it should be a little bit easier now, and you can see that it's not cooking any of the egg. But I ensure that it's properly spread, and I'm going to add my very first tortilla then. Once again, I'll start with my tomatoes, but I'm going to be a little bit more mean this time because I've got more ingredients, so I don't want it to become unmanageable. So tomatoes go in, and mustn't forget my oregano to give it that pizza flavor. In the meantime, to ensure that I don't run out of ingredients, I've broken everything into 2 piles. So mozzarella goes in first. And once again, I'm keeping away from the edges as this will spread anyway. So mushrooms, followed by a few sausages and my eggplants. And as I'm making this very decadent, I will also add a little ham, why not? Second wrap goes on top and press it down. You can see that the egg is beginning to find its way up, and that's good because this is the glue, of course. And I'm now repeating exactly the same process. Keep forgetting the oregano in the gas. Mozzarella next. Be quite generous with cheese because you do want the cheese to ooze out, of course. Sausages and mushrooms going together. Here is my other half of the eggplants, and I did say decadent, and decadent it is, so a little more ham goes on top also here. Final wrap, and you can see that this is a little bit more of a mountain compared to the first one, so I'm ensuring that I can press in the middle first so that the ingredients spread this way and this way, of course, and at the same time I'm going with my fingers towards the edge of the pan to ensure that the egg come up, and that's perfect. And here is the rest of my egg. By the way, I've added another egg to my mix as I was running out, so you will have to judge it depending on the size of your eggs and of course depending by the size of your tortillas. Perfect, so this can go back on the hob now, and same process as before. I'll turn it on, number 5, and in it goes. Little tip, I have noticed that as this one is very loaded with fillings, that the sides of my top tortilla comes up. So whilst it's cooking, what I'm going to do, I'm going to push it down with my little spatula so that I'm using the egg very much to ensure that it's like glue and it stay in place. See, look, it's beginning to bubble up now, so it's nearly ready. Another couple of minutes, but don't forget to put the lid on. Time to turn it around again, but this is really loaded, so before I shake it I go around with my little spatula just like this to ensure that it is properly dislodged, and let's check now. Oops, sorry, it's moving, so that's good. So off we go again. Here's my dish, and it's still a grease from before, by the way, so here it goes. 1, perfect, and 2, but I'm gonna use my spatula as it is really heavy. Perfect. A little push to ensure that it cooks throughout the base, and lid goes on. 3 more minutes. And ecco fatto, which is English for all done in Italian. So I'm doing exactly the same as to what I did before, and le voila, all done. And I'll start with the fully loaded one first, as the cheese is going to be really hot and it will be lovely and stringy, and you can see what I mean. And let's take a look. Wow, it looks absolutely fantastic. There, I'll move it so that hopefully you'll be able to see better on this camera. That is gorgeous. I'll move this out of the way, and I'll cut a slice of the other one to see what that looks like. And there we go. Yes, considerably simpler but equally delicious. So I'll just study up and I'll test some of each. By the way, do you like my channel? If you do, subscribe. Honestly, it is full of recipes. Very simple, very Sicilian, very Italian, and they're all delicious. But let's try this. I'll do the simple one first. It's just like a pizza, but using tortilla base instead of the dough, and I'm very keen to try this one next. And by now it has cooled down slightly, but the cooler it gets, the easier to handle it. And also these are big pieces, and this obviously will be perfect for us to have warm later, but the rest will go in the fridge, and you can have the day after and the day after that. But let's try this. the aubergines or eggplants, they really add distinctive flavor, and the sausages, they are to die for. I didn't want to be in the Navy, it was compulsory. And by then I was already dating Julie, and I wanted to be in the UK with Julie, but I had to do a full 12 months compulsory service. However, this is one of those good things that came from being in the Navy. I never put a foot on a boat, you should know, but this is delicious. Arrivederci, grazie, subscribe if you like it, and buon appetito.